Right, so welcome everyone. This is the first webinar of 2026 through the Lord Mayor's appeal for the Power of Inclusion programme. So thank you everyone for joining this webinar. So it should run for about an hour and it is being recorded as well, so you can always watch it later. Now, I'm Charlotte Biddle. I'm a Senior Global Benefits Captive Consultant at Aon. Have been in the industry for about 10 years, and I'm also on the Senior Leadership Forum with the Power of Inclusion programme, in particular on social mobility, as I'm also a former free school meal kid myself. Right. So the Power of Inclusion programme, for those who don't know, at the Lord Mayor's appeal, is about convening the people in the City of London and beyond to consider how we can increase opportunities for people from diverse socio-economic backgrounds to first start and then develop and progress in their careers. Now, the theme for today, it's a funny one being from the Midlands. If you'd asked me 10 years ago about unspoken rules of the city, I would have asked you which city. But turns out we're talking about the shining a spotlight on the hidden or unspoken rules of this small patch of London that I'm currently sat in, the square mile around Bank Station. Yeah. And yeah, this is an important topic for me, being a former free school meal kid myself, and the challenges that moving to the city, especially not being from London either. Yeah, so lots of challenges and want to hopefully make it an easier place for the next generation. Right. Now, this session will be a discussion where we'll explore some practical steps employers can take to create a more inclusive workplace culture, alongside some of our own experiences and leadership responsibility as well. Now, there will be a short poll today that we'll launch to understand the perspective of everyone who has joined today. With the question is, how visible do you think the unspoken rules of your organisation are to everyone? Now, I'll give you a few minutes to answer that question whilst I do the housekeeping stuff. Yeah. So just a bit of housekeeping. So the attendees, thank you for joining. You will be muted with your cameras off throughout the webinar. Questions for panelists should be submitted via the QA function. These will be addressed towards the end of the session. We've left a bit of time for questions. The chat can be used to say hello and to ask the Lord Mayor's appeal team any practical or technical questions. Feel free to introduce yourself on the chat. And attendees, everyone, you're all encouraged to follow and engage with the Lord Mayor's appeal on social media, share your attendance, continue the conversation on LinkedIn and wherever else it's posted. Right, so I'll give you a minute to answer the question on the poll, and then I'll be introducing handing over to introduce our panelists. Right, so we have some results from the poll. So on how visible do you think the unspoken rules of your organisation are to everyone? 7% very visible, and then most are sort of in the middle, so 37% somewhat visible, 42% not very visible, and 14% not visible at all. So hopefully we can all together bump up those scores. Yeah. Right. And I'll hand over first to Nicole for a brief intro.
Hi, thank you, Charlotte. Hello, everyone. My name's Nicole Williams, and I'm a senior lawyer and the head of impact investments at Ashurst LLP, which is a law firm. I also previously used to head up globally our D&I strategy at the firm. And prior to that, I have been an investment funds lawyer and a structured finance lawyer. But I also head up the firm's social mobility network and established that. And so continue to act as its chair.
Perfect. And now over to Zoe.
Hello everyone, my name is Zoe. I am a social entrepreneur. I founded an organization 9 years ago that called Miss Independent Careers that helps young women develop career confidence so that they can be successful in any career that they choose. So we do enterprise and employment programs in schools across London, and we have been a long-term partner with the Lord Mayor's Appeal, doing workshops with them for the We Can Be campaign. And I also teach social entrepreneurship at York St John University, their enterprise campus based in Canary Wharf. And I'm very involved in everything to do with diversity and inclusion, both on campus and within my organisation.
Thank you. And next up, Nishant.
Oh, thanks, Charlotte. Nishant Das, Nish is fine, so is ND, with my initials. So my day job, I'm an infrastructure finance specialist, 19 years of experience financing essential infra projects across Asia, Africa, Europe, and Americas. That's roads, ports, airports, energy supply networks, water supply, waste, data, and so on. So infra currently is a 2 trillion industry globally, and it's set to reach 3 trillion by 2030. It's an extremely specialized asset class. It essentially comprises of systems and networks that facilitate movement and storage of the 5 essential resources that drive economic activity, which is energy, water, goods and commodities, people, and since the late 90s, early 2000s, data. So that's my day job. It's slightly unfair to call it a day job. It's a 24/7 dynamic job. But on this panel, I'm here to support and talk about social mobility and power of inclusion. I've been a volunteer and an advocate for social mobility, which is something I feel extremely passionate about. I relate strongly to it, given my own journey, my upbringing, and experiences. And I've been supporting and amplifying initiatives in this space for a couple of years now. I'm a lead member of the social mobility group within Standard Chartered. We have a number of initiatives internally, plus externally that we run through a lot through Future Makers, which is an empowerment program that we run globally through Standard Chartered Foundation. Looking forward to the discussion today and hopefully adding more voice to this space.
Yeah, thank you. And last but not least, we have Sarah.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sarah Guerra. I'm joining you from Guildhall, where I work as the Equalities Director of the City of London Corporation, which some of you may know what it is and others don't. It's a very complex, diverse, interesting organisation that is both a local authority for the residents of the square mile of the City of London, but also acts as a business development function and seeks to make London, the City of London, the best place to do business, live, work on the globe. And we have a big function in kind of economic growth. We also spread much wider than the square mile because we have parks and open spaces in Epping Forest, Hampstead Heath, to just name a couple, as well as having the charity that runs 5 London bridges. I've been here for about 15 months, and before that, and I'm the first equality director here. I was the first director of equality, diversity and inclusion at King's College London, and also the first head of culture, diversity, equity and inclusion at the Bank of England. And I help organisations really understand how to be effective in the way that they want to be, how to be inclusive in the way that they want to be, both for all their staff, but also for all those that interact with them. But way back when, and yeah, I'm going back 5 decades now, I was born as the daughter of a Trinidadian and a Mauritian who came to this country as nurses. I was born in, it's just gone out of my head, in Edmonton. I cannot believe I cannot remember the place I was born. That shows you mind blanks from menopause. Um, anyway, I was born in a council estate, lived the first 3, 4 years of my life in social housing, and I believe I've lived a lot of the kind of social mobility journey with immigrant parents who were who really cared about me succeeding, but didn't understand the different rules and processes in this country. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, all of our wonderful panelists. Right, so to start with, I thought we'd share one example of an unspoken rule of the city that shaped our early career or perspective. I think for me, in insurance, there's something that has an unspoken rule is a lot for me around food. And as a former free school meal kid, there's a lot of food I didn't have as a child in terms of caviar or a Waldorf salad or whatever these are. And learning the cutlery. Yeah, free school meals, sometimes you don't even get cutlery. And then you're faced with sort of 8 different knives and wondering which one is the one for fish. So I think that's something that definitely shaped my earlier career and probably knocked my confidence a little bit when I first started. And something I still have to kind of remind myself of when I go to client dinners and things. And I'm sure I still make mistakes 10 years later. Yeah. So, Nicole, what is an example of an unspoken rule of the city that has shaped your career?
Sure, I think I had the same issues around culinary experiences. Which bread is mine? What's a red wine glass? Um, but I think for me, it was a lot about culture and knowledge. I think I'd always done quite well academically. I'd always been able to hold my own in debates at school and at university. And so I was quite confident in conversations and in social situations until I came into the city and came into a multinational law firm where I suddenly realized it felt like people were talking in a different language. And sometimes they were. Sometimes they were talking in Latin and French, which neither I study at school. I studied German. But they also spoke about things such as philosophy, art, books that I'd never heard of. They would drop quotes and make puns, and suddenly I felt I was excluded from a lot of conversations just because I didn't have that wider education or rounded education from both my parents and my family and my friends, but also from schooling. And I think that really started to make me personally feel quite excluded because these were conversations not just around the coffee machine, but they were happening in the canteen and in client contexts. So that sudden feeling of, do you feign that you understand what they're talking about? Or do you admit that you don't? If you do laugh and smile when you don't have a clue what people are talking about, do you walk away from those conversations feeling a bit of a fraud and worrying, did everybody know that I didn't follow those conversations? And I think that was a real shock to me to suddenly not feel confident and also start to question whether my education was inferior to others and did that make me capable of doing the job that I'd been employed to do. And that was something I hadn't fully recognized or expected. I felt that I was smart enough to do the job, but suddenly I lost my voice often in those social situations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it definitely knocks your confidence. Yeah. Zoe?
So it follows on quite nicely from there. I would say that what affected me the most was both the after work. It was more economical, but still to do with food and things like that. After work meetups at the local pub or at a restaurant or things like that in the city. And we all know, especially now, prices in the city. And when I remember starting out there, I had a mission and a plan of what I'm spending my money on, but then also feeling forced to go and spend money to go to these meals or have these drinks, so that I still fit in with the discussions that were had last night, and then they'll follow on in the office the next day. And so I felt that both the economic pressure as well as the social pressure, that if I didn't go, I'm not part of certain clubs, or I'm not part of certain conversations the next day in the office. And that put a lot of pressure on me because well, the background that I came from, at the time, I had family members that I was dependent on me financially. And so for me, again, budgets was important. And then secondly, the social pressure of it as well, that I'm spending time, you're figuring out your role, you're spending extra time figuring out your role, and now on top of that I have to spend more time trying to socialize and fit in into this role, into this company. So it felt like you're never leaving work. You can never leave work behind. Always having to have to be on guard socially because you want to make sure you're fitting in the team. And at the same time, you have that financial pressure as well, or spending money that maybe you don't want to spend, you didn't budget to spend as well in the in the line of work that you're doing. So that would be, I would say, two in one: social and economic pressures.
Yeah, I think me being from the Midlands, I still can't bring myself to spend £9 on a pint around here.
You'd be surprised what we pay in the Canary Wharf area as well.
Oh no. Yeah. Nishant?
Thanks, Charlotte. So yeah, so I'm going to dip into my memory here, and my story is a bit more nostalgic, slightly. I absolutely agree with everything that's been said. And I've faced similar challenges. So I've been in the city now 12 years. Landed here on a Friday, 4th of July, 2014. Can't forget that day, and that was living dreams for someone I had worked with remotely. So here I am moving into the city for the first time, no real connections, and there was one senior figure in the organization who I had worked with remotely. It happens to be his leaving drinks on the same day. So that was a rude awakening, a shock. But at the same time, it taught me a lot because the message I took away was the message of beautiful endings. Because it was a very senior figure in the organization, and I'm sure there were a lot of backroom battles before it was decided that it was his time to go. And at the end of the day, everyone was huddled up in where else? In a London pub, celebrating, toasting a career and building bonds like, they were all best friends for life. And I was there as a junior, just came into the city and just understanding what life is in the city, what the dynamics are. And yeah, that to me was my kind of unspoken rule takeaway, which is that no matter what, the city can be a hard place. It can be tough to make it here, but your connections are most important. Make sure, at the end of the day, you have a beautiful ending and build your networks and make sure you nourish it, embrace change. So there are a lot of takeaways I had along that theme of constant evolution. And yeah, but at the end of the day, making sure that you end on a right note and embrace, and every end is the beginning of something new.
Yeah, that's a lovely first day in London. Yeah.
Yeah. Now looking back, it sounds like a lovely first day. At the moment, I was petrified. You can imagine.
Yeah. It's a lot when you first come here. Yeah. Probably Sarah.
Thank you. Mine kind of comes in two parts. So I didn't actually start my career in the city. I started as a grad in the civil service. And if I go back to my kind of story about my parents, yeah, they were just keen that I went to university. And for various reasons, I missed my choice of universities by one grade. So I ended up going through clearing. And I went to what is now, I think, London Metropolitan University. It was the Polytechnic of North London then. And it may sound ridiculous, but I didn't understand that there was this hierarchy of universities. And I think most people would accept that in that hierarchy, the Polytechnic of North London was relatively low. And I made it into the fast stream and the civil service, which in itself is quite incredible. But I had no sense of the fact that I was a lesser citizen because of that I mean, it's easy to say Oxbridge, but I think these days we talk about the Russell Group, and I don't know how prevalent that is for grads these days, but then it immediately was like, oh, I people think that I haven't earned my place here because I've not been to those universities. And then you couple that with who I am, and I've always been a curious person, someone who asks lots of questions, challenges things that I don't understand or that I don't think are reasonable, um, and a problem solver. And I think that the feedback I got consistently in my early career is you need to be more careful about what you say, Sarah. You need to, yeah. And it seemed to be there were these rules about who could speak when, who could speak to who in public. And so the rhetoric or the line that we really welcome questions or we really welcome people helping us be better. And I only joined the city, I joined the Bank of England in 2020, just after the pandemic. So even as a kind of fully seasoned professional, going in thinking I had been recruited for my skills and experience, I still experienced that barrier of what's okay to say to who. And you're supposed to learn where I call them like force fields and landmines are, so that and you obviously know that different things operate in different scenarios, but it's how differently they are if you are in the in crowd versus a newbie.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting on the university point as well. And I do find it strange that I'm in my 30s and I still get asked which university I went to, even though it feels like a million years ago now. And yeah, the kind of being the first in the family to go to university, I didn't have the advice on which university to pick. I picked Plymouth because it was 200 miles away from home and it was by the sea, and I turned down a red brick university, which seems like a mad decision to a lot of other people, but I had a great time. So I'm all for former polytechnics. Right. Now I've got some specific questions for the panelists. Yeah, so we'll start with Nicole. So, from your experience leading a social mobility network, what are the most common barriers people face in navigating city culture?
Thanks, Charlotte. I think, as I said before, as you said, and as Zoe and Nishan has said as well, those social situations, often going to expensive restaurants, what do you order? Can you understand the menu? What's the cutlery? What do you wear? Those social scenarios are some of the common barriers that hold people back, or make them less confident and comfortable in those situations. There are other things such as your awareness on how to write emails. What language are you supposed to use? I know myself, I spent the first few months of starting as a lawyer writing down different phrases that I saw other people using and terminology that I saw other people use in emails to make sure my email sounded the same as everybody else's. I know now people can just use AI, but if you don't know how to get the tone right and direct AI, you won't get those professional emails. But I also think one of the common barriers, and I know it'll probably be touched upon by other panelists, is just that networking. And when I say that, it's not just how to work a room in a client networking event, but it's building your internal network of mentors and sponsors, But then as you get older and more senior in your career, you are more tasked with bringing in business to your firm or to your bank. And it's really easy to do that when you've gone to school or your parents have worked with people across different professions and industries and they can refer and introduce you. I think one of the common barriers, if you're from a lower socioeconomic background, it's not having those networks and not having those abilities to call on those people to help you, to support you in those more senior stages of your career. So I would say those are some of the common barriers. I probably should say as well that I'm a working class lass and I'm from Yorkshire. So my brother was the first to go to the university, but there is only a year difference between us in my family. So my background is very much northern working class, which I love, but is not something that I commonly found when I moved to the city.
Yeah, thank you. Next up, Zoe, what are the key unspoken rules young women often struggle with when entering city careers?
Some of the most common ones that we have seen is not understanding just things like following on from what Nicole was saying, what to wear. First of all, what to wear. What is smart casual? What is smart? What and especially now with so many different campaigns about women's rights and women's bodies and things like that. I think it's still become a little bit more confusing for some of the young women that we do work with. I had an instant where a few students came to work experience with us and we spoke to them about smart casual, and they were like, they showed up in tracksuits and didn't had no but they had no clue, they didn't see, they didn't know exactly what to wear, so they just showed up in what they were comfortable with. And we realized, oh, we have to define this for them. And I think in the city as well, it's we assume that everybody knows exactly the expectations of what to wear, what to wear, what you should wear for your body type has come up a lot with the young women as well, with different types of body types and things like that. And then we started to see how that has knocked and affected their confidence with then applying for further roles in the city, because it's now, I don't even know how I should look even going into my role. So if what I look like is going to be a problem when I go in, if I apply for this job, I'll rather just stay away from it and go to somewhere where when I go online, the work culture, what they're wearing, what people are doing in the workplace, I can identify with it. And then I would also say, again, going back into the economic aspect of economic barrier of things, is just affording the lifestyle. Um, there is a lifestyle when you work in the city that is we spoke about unspoken rule, food, lunches, then hair, what you do, especially with the young women that I work with, women from different backgrounds. My hair, what should it look like? Do I have to spend more money on how I should look, my makeup and things like that? So it then becomes an economic issue, because now they are thinking of how they have to spend money to figure out what they look like before they even enter into the world, into that particular workplace. And so that then can become a huge barrier for them, and then discourage them from wanting to even apply, let alone or stay in a job. So I would say those are the two biggest issues that we have seen so far, just at entry level, when we're getting into when we're speaking about jobs. And then but furthermore, when we've spoken about this before, that I think Nicole has mentioned, is just making sure that they know they're up to date with, feeling like they have to be up to date with what's going on in terms of what's going on in the political world, and in terms of what's going on around the world, keeping up with the news. And a lot of them are saying, I'm already struggling with my own problems, and now I have to make sure that I'm on top of the world's problems just to be included in conversations. So I think those are the three key areas that we have seen when we are preparing young women for their interviews and progression in city roles.
Yeah, for sure. And suits are expensive, so yeah, it's a lot
Yeah.
to shell out to go to an interview. Yeah. Right. Nishant, how does allyship, particularly mentoring and sponsorship, help bridge gaps in social capital?
Thanks, Charlotte. Yeah, so this is extremely powerful, right? And I want to cover both. I also want to build on what Nicole and Zoe have added. I think the theme on our panel, we talk about access, opportunity, and progression, right? And as Nicole mentioned, when you go higher up in the organization and when you have to bring the business yourself, the thing that's often lacking is access, and we have to remember that this is a ladder, right? And when we talk about making lives better for those who follow us, for improving the social mobility challenges. It's about building ladders, building steps which allow that access and then allow people to connect and then build relationships which will allow us progression. We're not asking for elevators, right? We're asking for ladders, building ladders, not asking anyone to be elevated all the way to the top, right? So that to me is very important. And within that framework, right, mentoring is something I've found extremely powerful. It's mentoring is about taking guidance, taking advice from people who are usually much more senior and have gone through the journey and therefore have access and have connections and have experiences. A lot of the mentoring can be informal. I think all organizations have formal mentoring. I've been assigned formal mentors, and it's useful to have a formal mentor. You can have a formal discussion and a sit down. You can track progress. What I find even more powerful is informal mentoring and on-the-job mentoring. And I've grown up in an era and in a work culture where that's more easier, and it's more powerful sometimes when you get mentored on the job. And I've walked away from conversations wherein it was just a helpful conversation with somebody very senior in the organization, and only later on I've actually put the two together and figured out that, oh, I was actually being mentored there. He guided me or she guided me in a path, and gave me advice which is going to stand me great for the rest of my career. So what my advice to young people who are on a career journey now would be to seek out not just the formal, look for the informal and look for the on the job mentoring. Now, sponsorship is something even more powerful. It's the act of using one's social capital, influences, and privilege to actively promote, advocate for, and open doors. Now, that is extremely powerful when a senior figure does it. It's not easy to get sponsorship, and we can say that that's one thing which can have the biggest impact. But in order to be able to get yourself in that position of sponsorship, I think what's important is your visibility, your determination, your hard work, your ability to show worthiness, right? And that is an ongoing journey. And a lot more needs to happen, hopefully. And if we have more sponsorship for people from low economic backgrounds, for people with various diversity related challenges who need that support, I think it will be extremely powerful to have sponsorship on the table. Um, uh, in the absence of that, I think mentoring is a way which can help a lot of people unlock doors.
Yeah, thank you. And mentoring at all stages of your career as well, I think is powerful. I'm 10 years in and I've just got a mentor for the next sort of stage of my career. So yeah, it can be good for everyone. Right. And then Sarah, from a leadership perspective, what can organizations do to level the playing field and challenge unspoken norms?
Hello again. So just to come back, I was born in Joyce Avenue, so where I couldn't remember where I was born, I now have remembered. And before I come to my question, just building on what Nishant has said, I think that the mentoring piece is really important. When I started my career, we were assigned specific mentors, and that was super helpful. I think as you follow your journey, it may not always be a formal thing, as Nishant said. And one of the things that's really stuck in my mind is when I started at King's, there was a member of the executive team who, to my mind, we had a conversation where it was really awkward, really difficult. He seemed to be giving me advice that was to be completely different to how I was. When I spoke to someone who I found easier to talk to, they reframed that conversation and said that person would not have spent that time with you if they did not want you to succeed. And so when I thought about what they said and looked at it through a different lens, I could see how helpful what they were telling me was. Perhaps he could have given that advice to me differently. Perhaps he could have framed it as advice, but he actually was trying to help me succeed, and he was helping me to understand what could go wrong. And I was a bit deaf to that because of my own kind of barriers. But coming to my question, I think what organisations can do is, one, recognize that it is a thing, recognize that different people have different starting points and different experiences, and whether the barrier is in the organisation or in their perception, they're not going to get the best out of those people if they don't do something about it. And a lot of this is really basic stuff. It is get individuals that are senior to recognise their own journeys, their own biases, be self-aware, be really clear as an organisation on expectations. What is essential for performance in the role, and how will that be judged? But also do a bit of thinking about what might be coming up as myths of performance or myths of success. And if you don't want them to be relevant, start taking action against them. Start saying that's not relevant, this is relevant. And individual leaders, organizations need to do as much as they can to decode things. So if you are the chair or the leader of a team, it's your responsibility to make sure that everyone's understood what's going on, not to say something and leave everyone to it, and to role model that behavior. So I think the examples about going out, there is definitely something that is positive about trying to create team connection. Doing so in a way that allows everyone to be involved, which can sometimes take more effort and more imagination, is really important.
Definitely. Yeah, thank you. Right, the next few questions we're going to do quick fire, conscious of time, so that we can answer some of the Q&A from the audience. So I'll limit you to a minute and a half. Right, so Nicole, how do employee networks help highlight and break down these hidden rules?
Well, when I think about where the social mobility network started at Ashurst, it came from a reverse mentoring relationship. So I was mentoring a senior white woman who's Northern. She was our officer MP, and she's also sat on our exec committees at Ashurst. And I was paired with her to talk about being from an ethnic minority and to kind of make her understand some of the challenges I faced as an ethnic minority in the workplace. But what was strange was when we were talking to each other, she really identified with a lot of the things that I said made me feel like an other, or not made me feel like I didn't fit in. And that was because she'd grown up on a council estate from being from up north. And I think one of the things from that conversation which led us to set up the social mobility network was just this feeling of validation, feeling that suddenly I was talking about these things as someone who was super senior, who I had all these misconceptions about, felt the same way and continue to feel the same way as a senior person. And for me, it really gave me this feeling of empowerment. I felt like I could own it for the first time. I'd seen somebody senior who was successful, and that I could own my background and I could start talking about my background rather than hiding it. I have a very strong Northern accent, which I don't bring to work, and that's something that I'd learned from very early on in my career didn't feel acceptable. And therefore I hid that I was from outside of London. And being part of a network really gave me that chance to own my identity. And I think the other thing about networks is they really allow you to get tips on how to navigate situations that you're not sure of. They create that safe space. But I think the social mobility network, one thing we're really, really blessed with is we have so many allies who create some of those organic networking and mentoring and sponsorship opportunities that perhaps wouldn't be available. We have people who have actively partner with the network to make sure that they can reach out to people who might not have those networks naturally from just being in the workplace. So I think the great thing about networks is they help validate, they help empower, and they also create a great place for learning and also to create those relationships that can help progress you in your career. But it's definitely also a good place to educate others on some of those difficulties as well.
Yeah, I definitely get a sense of belonging from Aon's social mobility network. It's a good one. Right. Next up, Zoe, what practical steps have you taken to empower young women to navigate these rules and thrive?
One of the So we do two things actually to help them navigate and thrive. And I would say people in the city and any organizations that are open to collaborating will do so. So collaboration, the two types of collaborations we have done is we've worked with SmartWorks. They are a charity for women, and they help women. They do workshops about how to dress for your size, dress for your environment. And we do workshops with them now. When young women come to us, we collaborated with them, and they have professional stylists that come in and do fun confident workshops on how to dress for the kind of work that you want to do. And we've collaborated with incredible brands like H&M, Whistles, Mint Velvet, and things like that for these kind of workshops, which has really, we've seen a massive confidence boost for the young women that we've worked with because of that. And the second collaboration we do, which I would say we're always open to collaborate with companies, is we do a day in a life. So we bring some of our girls that are very keen, they're studying at the moment, but keen to learn more about different organizations. We bring them over to your organization for a day so that they can actually see, feel, touch, see what everyone is wearing, have a conversation with people in the organization. So we plan organization visit days, and we've seen that has tremendously helped with confidence, and with them applying for jobs now, feeling more confident applying for jobs. It's broken down so many barriers. So we've worked with Metro Bank, Domestic in General. We've worked with TikTok before, Wimbledon Tennis. So many of these companies who have been so generous to open up, Bates Wells as well, who've been so generous to open up with their organization for an afternoon or a full day, and giving these young women a taste of what it's like to come into that workplace. It has tremendously helped with, I would say, applications and their confidence overall.
Yeah, awesome. Right. Next up, Nishant, what role does psychological safety play in enabling people to ask questions or admit what they do not know?
Thanks, Charlotte. Yeah, so this is an immensely powerful concept. Shout out to Amy Edmondson, who's done some amazing work on the whole topic of psychological safety. At the heart, it's about our ability to take risks, right? And our ability to take risk is impacted by the environment we are in. So teams which have psychological safety, where members feel comfortable speaking up without fear of punishment or humiliation or repercussions, they will perform better in the long run. And lack of psychological safety will create an environment of fear, where things get hidden, where mistakes are not uncovered, and leaders tend to push the status quo, and that can create a lot of problems in the long run. I think one example which I had was around For example, think of nurses in a hospital unit. And that's again thanks to Amy Edmondson's work. Think of nurses in a hospital unit and think of that high pressure environment. And let's say if they were to, they were to hide or, medical errors, and think of a different environment where the nurses feel empowered and they feel psychologically safe, revealing some of the errors, which can then be corrected, and then you can have better processes, better systems. As we say, a stitch in time saves nine, right? So it's all about creating an environment where there is this empowerment, feeling of safety to admit mistakes. So teams can learn, and you learn better. When you reveal your errors, when you speak up, and that is extremely crucial for the health of any organization.
Yeah, thank you. And finally, before we move on to the Q&A, Sarah, what responsibility do senior leaders have versus individuals in navigating information gaps?
I mean, again, it follows on so nicely that senior leaders are the people who play a big role in creating psychological safety. So my simple answer was senior leaders have a huge responsibility. They need to recognize the power that they hold and the weight of their words. That they may say something, I may say something in an offhand way. The way that that lands, or the way that that ripples through all the people that work for you, you've got to be clear that's what you meant, as opposed to it was an offhand comment. And you need to kind of follow up and check through. There's a really great framework called cultural intelligence, which helps people think about how they approach the world, what their kind of cultural norms are, helps them think about other people's norms, and then gives you a way of working out how to interact with people to test all those things. So there's something about how do we learn to be better leaders. That all said, and I think it is really organizational leaders' responsibility to make sure that they have created the opportunity for everyone to understand what they need to understand. All of us as individuals also have personal responsibility. If we don't understand something, we need to not let that go. We need to think about how to solve that problem. And I always say to people that I meet, senior people are just people. They're not mind readers. So there is a degree to which if they don't know that that's an issue, and whilst I've just said it's a big part of the job to try and find out and to think about what you don't know, what you're not hearing, what you're not seeing, but in the end, you are not magic. So other people giving you feedback and telling you what's going on for them, if they feel psychologically safe, is really important.
Yeah, thank you. Right, now we'll go on to the Q&A section. So I can see we've had quite a few questions, so we may not get through all of them, but we can download them afterwards, and happy to answer any. So we've got loads of great questions, so thank you everyone. Yeah, so where shall we start? Right. So we'll start, and I think there's a few good ones here, all great ones. Yeah. So right, the question, I think it was Zoe that spoke about needing to explain dress code and what smart casual means. Do any of the panelists have any other examples of work experience, young people or recent grads coming in and immediately not meeting would most people would consider a standard office expectation without considering that some people might not be aware of it? So those first few days as a grad or a recent hire in the office, so once they've navigated the smart casual conversation, what other examples? Right. So Zoe, do you have any other examples maybe?
I'm sorry, it's escaped my mind of other examples. I'm just going through some feedback.
Yeah, no worries. Anyone else sort of got some other examples? And I think we,
I,
yeah,
I can go if you like.
yeah,
I'm a mother of four daughters, so to some extent I've watched different people join the workforce at different times, and I've also been a school governor at a local academy. I think we've got to remember that many schools are really prescriptive about what they tell you to wear, and then we give very vague general rules. And in some places that's genuinely okay. Come as you feel comfortable. If that's what we say, we should be accepting how the person comes. If we have particular rules, I think we need to be really clear about them. But I think watching, so I've got a daughter who's 19, a daughter who's 22, struggle with, is this skirt too short? Is it okay to wear a vest top? You know, and it's impossible to answer that question without knowing, well, I don't know what the other people are going to be wearing. I don't know what they're like. And I think it's a really difficult thing to cross. And I think the only thing we can do perhaps is offer people the opportunity before they start to come and have a look round so they can see. And I don't want to make people norm to where we are, but there is something about them understanding what it looks like, where they're going to go, where they're going to be sitting for the day, so that they can get a sense of what what that looks like to them. Or whether we do more videos and things. I expect some really good companies are
mm,
doing that, where they provide a lot more example of what the environment looks like in
Yeah.
every day.
Or including it in their inductions more so, and more obvious in their inductions. Um, so following on from that, Sarah, the one that did pop up, I would say, from some of the research that we did was emails. Email communication, out of office communication. Who do I CC? Do I CC my manager into everything, or do I not CC them into everything? How do I start? Is it dear? Is it hello? Is it hi? Is it like all of those things? I know now that we do have the help of AI, but still, I do think every organization has a way that they like to do things, especially when it comes to emails. And you can find a lot of I would say new graduates, people that are on apprenticeship schemes, etc., freezing or taking hours or maybe days sometimes to respond to emails because they actually just don't know how to address you in that organization. So I do think, again, just having some sort of training or induction, or when you're having your one-to-one, having a one-to-one with the management, if we can offer up that conversation, because often what I've seen, especially with the young women that I work with, they just freeze, they won't ask. But if you do offer at that conversation, are you okay handling this email? Would you like some support? Do you know how to talk to X, Y, and Z? And then you'll notice that the conversation starts, and then we can and then you can advise them on how to address that. So yeah, email etiquette has been a huge thing that we've researched that has popped up of lately.
yeah. No, that's great. Yeah, it's an interesting one, sort of kind of going back to my first days in the office. So yeah, it's not just the clothing, but also how to write an email, what to talk about in the office, what language to use. And I think something that Nicole mentioned earlier as well, I've also definitely dialed down my accent, so I don't sound too Midlands anymore. Yeah, so there's a lot of that which hopefully that is going away. But yeah, we can have people be their authentic selves. But I think maybe just being a bit less kind of judgmental when people start, letting them have a few days to settle in and really doing a very detailed induction. Yeah, right. So we've got loads on here. Yeah, right. So I'll start with another one. So it's an interesting one. So London's a very unfriendly city. It's difficult to make new friends here unless you have a kickstart through work relationships, sports, or schools. When did you see the change in yourself to become more of a Londoner and felt you now belong? So I think for me, it's yeah, being from the Midlands. I think partly it's sort of negotiating the tube when one line is down, working out how to save myself there. And I think people have just sort of perhaps got a bit used to me now. But I think London, I agree, when I first moved here, it was an unfriendly city. I did have on I think my fourth day in London, someone tell me to go back to Birmingham. Wasn't born there, so interesting conversation. Yeah, so I think it can still be unfriendly, but I think time definitely has helped me, and people kind of getting to know me, knowing there's nothing wrong with the Midlands. I think maybe Nicole is a northerner.
Yeah, I think it's actually London's such a melting pot that particularly in the city, you don't meet many true Londoners. People are from all over the place. I think for me it's not more feeling like a Londoner, it's feeling comfortable not being a Londoner. And I think that's when you really do find the belonging. And for me, it's as I said before, when I had that discussion around social mobility and I met a senior person who revealed they were from up north, it was that sudden feeling of actually I can be very open as to where I'm from and I can be more comfortable about who I am. That made me feel like I can belong. And I think if you really embrace differences and look at things like accent bias, is that a big thing within your organization? Is that holding back hiring people from outside London? I think it's those things that really kind of step you on the way to feeling like you can belong. So it's not about being a Londoner, it's about being comfortable not being a Londoner to feel like you belong, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. Right, I'm conscious of time, so maybe we'll do one more question. And then yeah, we're happy to go back and answer other questions via email, etc. Yeah. So I'll start with right, how can early careers integrate more seamlessly into multi-generational teams so they are confident and more competent to stay long term? I think perhaps for me, reverse mentoring is
I was going to say
actually
that.
great. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyone have further comments on that one? Yeah. Is it
I would
Zoe or
say if
Shan?
having a buddy program is something I found quite useful. So when I came into the city, going back to the previous question, yeah, I had no connections other than work connections. So I benefited hugely from the fact that there was a very diverse and quite a big team of working colleagues I was part of. So that was really family till kind of I built out my other networks through sport and through eventually through schools and kids and stuff like that. But that initial period, yeah, having a buddy, mentors and other networks and initiatives that you can be part of. I think that's something which would be helpful.
Yeah.
I would also add now we've spoken about the social barrier, but then we do need to provide opportunities as organizations should provide opportunities where you can be sociable. So, but taking out, I would say the company paying for that. So we take out the economic barrier, and we're providing socials, or we're providing team bonding activities for both for all generations to do. It does require some time and some effort, but we have seen that it has worked, especially when everybody is involved, the organization wide, or departments, your teams are involved in these types of socials that the company then invests into. So I would say we can't avoid the social barrier. So let's try and make it work, integrate it, create environments or create opportunities and activities that will bring allow us to speak to one another in a more relaxed environment. And I believe that those barriers will start to naturally come down.
No,
Yeah,
I
definitely.
completely agree with that. And I would also say is in a world of hybrid working, we have to be much more intentional at creating the situations that used to happen more organically. I used to share an office with a senior person, and you build up that relationship, you build up that natural mentoring from that, and you learn from them. Now you have senior people who are not in the office, or they're not in the office at the same time as the more junior people. And I think we have to make sure we are really consciously bringing those different generations together, and not losing that in a hybrid world. I think flexibility is so important, but we have to make sure that we're thinking about how we can do that, where we are making sure that those different generations are crossing each other's path and interacting, and not just stuck with their own generational groups.
Yeah, perhaps a variety of events as well, as not everyone drinks. So have a good mixture of things that people can try. Right, conscious we have run a little bit over. So thank you to all the panelists for this great discussion, and thanks everyone for the questions. We'll try and answer some of them afterwards. So we've got a little poll here. So has this webinar provided a clearer understanding of the role employers can play in making unspoken rules more transparent? So hopefully we get a few of the top answers on those ones. And just a shout out as well. So the next Power of Inclusion workshop is on the 12th of March. So hopefully you can attend that one, and it's at Standard Chartered Bank. In March. So we've got a couple of months till then. Thanks everyone for joining. The recording will be available on the hub in a couple of weeks' time. And there we go. It's great to hear that lots of people have put yes, either significantly or somewhat. So it's good to hear. All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll hopefully see you soon.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all. Bye.